Mario Party franchise has had a lot of boss fights over the course of its lifetime. A lot of them are really fun, and others can be kinda boring, or even bad. In this video, I'm going to be ranking every Mario Party boss fight from worst to best. Here we go. Surprisingly, this is the only boss fight on the entire list that revolves entirely around luck. What happens here is you hit a dice block, and the number you roll is added to this meter. Once the meter reaches a multiple of 3, it lands on a star symbol, and that means you get to attack Bowser Jr. Depending on how high the multiple of 3 is, you get more points depending on how high it was. The higher it is, the more points you'll get for attacking him. If the meter lands on a Bowser Jr. symbol, Bowser Jr. attacks you and takes your points away. There's absolutely no strategy with this boss fight, and it's not revolved around skill at all, which is why I don't like it. Moving on. Number 49, Mega Bloopers Bubble Battle. I don't know about you, but I've really never been a fan of this boss fight. It's really forgettable for one thing, and honestly all you're doing is just matching up pictures with other pictures as they're floating across the screen to attack him. It's not that fun, it's not that challenging, it's just not good. Number 48, Sludge Bros Card Chaos. What happens here is you gotta memorize the cards with all the bullet bills on them and try not to pick one that has hammers on them. Later some cards will get flung off the screen, so it's always good to memorize more than one card with bullet bills on it. It's fairly simple and not unfun, but I've always just been good at the memorizing minigames, so I just find I don't really feel challenged with these ones, and I don't really have a lot of fun playing them. Number 47, Kamek's Card Tricks. This is very similar to Sludge Bros Card Chaos. Instead of getting bullet bills, you're trying to get back arrows, and sometimes the cards will get swapped around or flipped upside down. If you get a Kamek card, you lose points. That's basically all that's different here. They could be interchanged. Number 46, Deck Dry Bones. The thing I like about this card memorizing boss fight is that you gotta try to remember where at least one of the variations of each of the cards are for when Dry Bones lands. If you don't pick the right color, you can't attack him. I like this one because it requires the most brain power and feels the most challenging. Number 45, Hammer Chime. Instead of memorizing cards for once, you gotta memorize which drums Hammer Bro hits and in what order. I find this one can be kind of easy at times, but it's very exciting, and all in all, it's kind of a good time. But it is basically just Simon Says, so it's kind of simple. Number 44, Stardust Battle. This was the very first Mario Party boss fight ever made, and as you would expect, it's quite simple. All you gotta do is you gotta run around the stage, and stars will fall down trying to hurt you, but as long as you don't stop moving, you'll be okay. Then you gotta quickly pick up one of those stars and throw it at the Millennium Star. Piece of cake, super easy, requires minimal effort. Number 43, Superstar Showdown. The first Bowser boss fight on the list, and the worst by far. All you gotta do to avoid his attacks is move left or right. It's that simple. And then you wave the Wii remote around to attack him. Bowser's attacks do get more advanced as you progress throughout the fight, but it never becomes any form of a challenge. Number 42, Chain Chomp's Lava Lunge. This boss fight's a little tricky getting used to the patterns, but once you get that down, it's a piece of cake. Chain Chomp will just chase you around the stage, and when he tries to jump on you, you just gotta go to one of the corners of the stage, and he'll boil himself in the lava. It's not much of a challenge ever, really, and is really easy. Number 41, Spike Strike. This boss fight's based around reaction time. A bunch of items will appear in front of you, and you gotta try and grab the hammer instead of the sticks. If you grab the golden hammer, you get more points. This can be really challenging if you're playing with people or computer players that are on your level, and you gotta try and act fast to grab the golden hammer, or just a hammer in general. It's a really fun boss fight, but can be kinda simple at times. Number 40, Petey's Bomb Battle. What you gotta do here is you gotta throw bombs at Petey Piranha, but you gotta avoid when he starts sucking them in because he'll spit them back at you and you'll lose points. It's pretty simple, but makes for a good time. Number 39, Hexoskeleton. This boss fight's really cool just because you're kind of moving in an open 3D area, but it's really easy. All you gotta do is look at the bottom screen to ground pound the right button, and it'll attack Dry Bones, and that's all you gotta do. It's really simple, but it's kind of fun as well. Number 38, Mega Mecha Koopa's Swing and Stomp. All you gotta do is run to the left side of the stage, jump on some swinging bars, and then jump on the Mecha Koopa. It's really simple, but is oddly satisfying. Number 37, Mega Monimoles in the Hole. The real Mega Monimole will appear in a random hole around the stage, and you gotta run to him really fast so that you can hit him with your hammer. You gotta avoid hitting the fake Monimoles, which will blow up if you hit them. Number 36, Wiggler Bounce. Wiggler will walk around the stage and you gotta ground pound him. Certain spots of his body will be red, so you just ground pound those and it'll give you more points. You gotta avoid the piranha plants as well. Number 35, Cheap Cheap Shot. All you gotta do here is swim around, grab Koopa shells, and hurl them back at the Cheep Cheep. Aiming can be a little challenging sometimes, but shouldn't be much of an issue. Number 34, Blooper Barrage. Just try and shoot Blooper a bunch of times. That's all that'll really happen here. It's kind of fun, actually. Number 33, Mega Dry Bones' Femur Fever. What you gotta do here is you gotta ground pound your cannon so that it'll fire a cannonball at Dry Bones. You gotta ground pound it 3 times in order for it to hit Dry Bones. He'll try to stop you by throwing bones at you, but all you gotta do is do a well-timed jump to avoid them. Number 32, Bowser's Hit or Missile Mania. This one's kind of interesting. You gotta button mash in order to hit Bowser with rockets, but when he launches rockets at you, you gotta stop and use your shield. It's kind of a cool way to multitask, but all in all, it's a little simplistic. Number 31, Bowser's Shocking Slip Up. What you gotta do here is you gotta run around hitting these boxes. If you hit them when there's an electric bolt symbol, you'll attack Bowser with an electrical shock. If you hit it when there's a banana symbol, a banana appears and you gotta try not to slip on it. Bowser won't do too much to attack you here, so your biggest enemy is timing you hitting the box properly. Number 30, Bowser's Space Race. The goal here is to make it to the end of Bowser's small racetrack so that you can grab the Mega Mushroom and get more points when you drop bombs on him. It's really easy, and once you get a few practice runs in, it's a piece of cake. Number 29, PD Piranha's Shell Smackdown. All you gotta do is pick up shells and throw them at PD Piranha. He'll move around the stage in some interesting ways, but he'll never really be that much of a threat. Number 28, Mega Goomba's Ladder Leap. You gotta climb up some ladders and try and jump on Goomba's head 3 times to get a combo. Sometimes some of those squirrels from the new Super Mario Bros. Games will try and fly at you and you gotta avoid them. This is a pretty easy boss fight, but I find it oddly fun sometimes. Number 27, Goomba Tower Takedown. As easy as this boss fight can be sometimes, I really find it satisfying when you hit the Goomba on the bottom and the other ones just topple over and then you have to hit them while they're on the ground. It's a super easy and simple boss fight, but there's a lot of enjoyment to get out of this one. Number 26, Dry Bowser's Brain Bonk. I've always really liked this one. The aesthetic and the music make this boss fight feel really intense, and even though it's kind of easy, there's a lot of fun to be had with this one. I mean, yeah, sure, it's another memorizing boss fight, but everything else about it is kind of cool, and honestly, I enjoy this one. Number 25, Mega Goomba's Bad Dream. This one's kind of interesting. You gotta run up to Mega Goomba while he's asleep and take his apples while avoiding the little Goombas around you. It's not overly challenging, but it's kinda interesting, and eventually Mega Goomba wakes up and makes the whole thing a bit more challenging. It's a well thought out boss fight, and quite frankly, I enjoy it. Number 24, King Boo's Puzzle Attack. Pretty standard puzzle-based boss fight. You just gotta match 3 of one thing in a row and you attack him. It can be kind of intense at times, but overall, it's not bad, and I enjoy this one. Number 23, King Bob-omb's Boom Data. This is pretty cool. You just load Bob-ombs into cannons and fire them at King Bob-omb. It's really cool running around trying to grab the Bob-ombs before your opponents do so that you can get more points. It's a lot of fun. Number 22, Socket Talakatu. This one kind of has a luck element to it where you gotta run around hitting blocks and hoping that you get multiple bullet bills. But it's still a lot of fun just running around hitting blocks and hoping for the best. As simple of a minigame as this is, I really enjoy it. Number 21, Feed and Seed. I've always really enjoyed this one. You use a balloon to float above Piranha Plant, and there are these bomb seeds to your left and your right. You can only grab them after Piranha Plant has tried to suck you in though. Once he does that, you gotta mash A so he doesn't eat you. What he'll do after that is he'll spit out all the bomb seeds and you gotta grab one. Then when he tries to suck you in again, you gotta throw one down so that he accidentally eats it and it blows him up a little bit. It's really fun and has a lot of cool elements to it, and I really enjoy it. Number 20, Mr. Blizzard's Snow Slalom. That's a really hard word to say. I don't even know if I said it right. Anyway, this is a fun boss fight. You roll into a ball and use the DS touchscreen to keep rolling faster and faster while moving left and right to dodge obstacles. You eventually roll towards Mr. Blizzard and hurt him. It's really cool, and honestly I find this boss fight to be a lot of fun. Number 19, King Boo's Light Smite. What you gotta do is you gotta grab a light and then you gotta platform your way to King Boo while dodging Peepas and spinning platforms. It's a pretty fun boss fight, and even though it can be kind of easy at times, it still has its moments where it's pretty good. Number 18, Bombard King Babam. This can be a pretty challenging boss fight at times. What you gotta do is you gotta pick a Bob-omb, and each one is a different size. The bigger ones obviously do more damage, awarding you more points. The challenge is, you don't know which ones your opponents are gonna go for, and if you go for the same one, neither of you gets it. It's a pretty cool risk and reward system, but even if you go for one of the smaller Bob-ombs, there's still a chance you'll run into one of your opponents. So, it's a really cool thinking boss fight, and I enjoy this one a lot. There's a lot of strategy that goes into this one. Number 17, Mega Cheap Chomp's Shell Shock. Say that 10 times fast. For this boss fight, you get to shoot a Cheap Chomp with Koopa shells. But there's a huge catch. Every time you shoot the Koopa shell at the Cheap Chomp, he'll move one player to his right. Once he's facing a player at the end of being shot, he will jump on that player and lose them points. Every time you shoot Cheap Chomp, you gain points. But the problem is, you usually want to save your Koopa shells in case Cheap Chomp is pointing at you. That way you don't risk losing any points. There's a lot of risk and reward that goes into this boss fight too, and I love the strategy behind it. It's a lot of fun and can be really challenging at times. Number 16, Womp Stomp. This one's very similar to Mega Cheap Chomp's Shell Shock, except instead, you're deciding whether to pull a lever or not pull a lever. For every player who pulls the lever, the platform you're on will rotate one player to the right. If you're in front of Womp when the platform stops rotating, he'll squish you and you'll lose points, but the other 3 players get to jump on top of him and ground pound him for points. It's very similar to Mega Cheap Chomp's Shell Shock, except you're rewarded more heavily for not getting attacked. These two could be completely interchanged, but I find this one just has a bit more strategy to it, and it's harder to defend yourself with this one. Number 15, Kamek's Rocket Rampage. I think this one's pretty cool. You gotta grab rockets from Bubbles and launch them at Kamek. It's pretty similar, but it gets kind of intense, and Kamek will use some attacks on you, which are pretty cool. Number 14, King Boo's Tricky Tiles. This one's pretty good. You jump on these tiles that lead to all these different lights. Some will award you more points than others, and you usually obviously want to go for the ones that award you more points. The challenge here is that some of the tiles are secretly Boos trying to trip you up. If you jump on one that's secretly a Boo, you'll fall and have to start over from the beginning. It's pretty fun, and usually as long as you're paying attention, you won't step on a Boo. But all in all, it's a fun boss fight, and I enjoy this one. Number 13, Chain Chomp Romp. This one's really fun. The camera pans through this railroad track, and you gotta quickly pay attention so that you can choose a minecart that leads to a cannon. It's a lot of fun and can be actually kinda challenging at times. Number 12, Mega Bloopers Bayside Bop. I surprisingly enjoy this one. All you gotta do here is press A at the right time when the ball's coming towards you, but it's really enjoyable and is one of the most memorable boss fights in Mario Party Star Rush. Number 11, Monty Mole's Maze Mischief. I'm a sucker for the maze minigames in Mario Party games. I find this one to be a lot of fun because you gotta quickly make your way from one end of the maze to the other, and it's really intense. I just enjoy this one, and I think it's really, really fun. Number 10, King Babam's Court of Chaos. This one can be really intense and even challenging at times. The first few times aren't too bad. All you gotta do is use the DS touchscreen to line up a path to the cannon so that the Bob-omb will hit King Bob-omb. But by the second phase, it actually gets kinda challenging. The path gets a bit more complicated, and a 4th row is even added. While you usually won't struggle with this one too much, the final time you gotta hit him can be a bit intense. Number 9, Bowser Jr.'s Pound for Pound. This one is really good. You're in this ring, and there are a bunch of Bowser Jr. faces everywhere that you gotta ground pound. The ones on the outside of the ring are worth less, but the ones on the inside are worth more. The problem is, Bowser Jr. is guarding the ones on the inside a lot more than the ones on the outside. So there's a bit of a risk and reward system where if you go to the center, you have to avoid Bowser Jr., but you can at least get more points. This is a really fun boss fight because Bowser Jr. doesn't give you an easy time, but it's also not overly difficult either. It's really good and is probably the most iconic boss fight in Mario Party Star Rush. Number 8, Bowser's Sky Scuffle. This one's really cool. You use a cannon to hit Bowser at first, and you gotta aim using the motion controls on the 3DS. It's pretty cool and isn't overly challenging either. You then move on to this moving platform where Bowser's trying to attack you, and you gotta hit these blocks to get more cannonballs. You then repeat the process until you eventually defeat Bowser. It's a lot of fun, and even though it can be kinda underwhelming, it's not bad, and is one of the best Bowser boss fights in Mario Party history. Number 7, Bowser's Lovely Lift. This is a really challenging boss fight sometimes. You're on this platform, and you gotta hit these 4 dice blocks. When you do that, all of the numbers are added together, and that's how many floors you'll rise. You gotta get to the 100th floor. Bowser does not make this easy though. He uses a ton of attacks that are very hard to avoid to stop you. It's an insane boss fight, but I really like it. Number 6, Book Bash. This is an incredible boss fight. You're on this flying book, and you use this ink squirting gun to attack other flying books. Very interesting, I never thought I'd say that sentence before. You gotta maneuver your way through this library, and at the end you get to fight Kamek. It's an awesome boss fight, and I love this one. Number 5, Bowser's Block Battle. What'll happen here is you'll be on this platform, and Bowser will throw all these dice blocks on it. You then gotta turn over all the dice blocks to try and get them to show your character's face. For every dice block that has your character's face on it, you get to attack Bowser once, and you get a point for it. Bowser will then roll another dice block that'll summon a boss fight from Mario Party 9, and that boss fight will try and attack you. It's really cool and honestly has a lot to offer. It's one of the more fleshed out boss fights in Mario Party 9 and in Mario Party history. Number 4, Bowser's Tank Terror. This is an incredible boss fight. Everyone's in a tank and you're constantly firing shots at Bowser. He'll use so many attacks to try and hurt you. What happens at the second phase of the boss fight is Bowser's tank explodes and he gets thrown into the lava. He then turns into an enormous version of Dry Bowser and will use many attacks to try and hurt you guys after that. You then gotta try and shoot Dry Bowser until he eventually dies. This is a really cool boss fight, and I love the twists of Dry Bowser being thrown in at the end. It is by far one of the most memorable boss fights in Mario Party history, and is really good. Number 3, Bowser's Block Party. This is an awesome boss fight. I really love just the feel and the style of it. You're actually going head to head with Bowser, and it feels awesome. Bowser will use this thing that turns him into a bunch of blocks, I guess, and he has a weak point. That weak point is a gold block with his face on it. First, he'll turn into a Beyblade, basically, and start spinning around the stage, and you gotta wait for him to get tired before you can hit his weak point. He'll also use plenty of fire attacks as well. The second phase is a giant cube, where he'll be rolling around the stage as a cube, and you gotta hit his weak point when it's facing downward so that you can reach it. He'll also use fire attacks here too. Lastly, he forms into a snake, and you gotta hit the head of the snake to hurt him. But he's also using fire attacks, so that can be really challenging on this phase. This is an awesome boss fight, and it actually has a good amount of challenge to it. It's not overly hard, but not overly easy either. I mean, it does have its challenging moments, but once you get the overall patterns down and stuff, it's not too bad. Number 2, the final battle. This is an awesome boss fight. I've said that about pretty much all of these at this point. You're on this giant fire cube in the middle of space, and you gotta go through a lot of obstacles before you can fight Bowser. The first obstacle you have to go through is platforming. You gotta jump on these circles that have fire spinning around them, and making the jumps can be kinda precise, but it's not too bad. You then have to complete this puzzle of Koopa Kid, which isn't too bad, it's not really much of a puzzle. Then you do more platforming, you complete a puzzle of Bowser, which again, not really much of a puzzle. And then you actually get to fight Bowser, which is really cool. Most of his attacks are fairly easy to avoid, and what you gotta do to hurt him is you gotta trap him in a triangle, which you form by ground pounding different circles around the battlefield. It's kinda hard to explain. But once you do that, he'll get struck by lightning, he'll take damage, and you move on. It's an awesome boss fight and is one of the most iconic ones in Mario Party history. And number 1 on the list is Frightmare. This is an incredible boss fight because it's done in phases and each one is so much fun and is the exact right level of difficulty. The first phase is you taking out a bunch of Mecha Koopas, which can be a little challenging if you're not careful because they breathe fire. The second phase is jumping over a bunch of fire rings that are doing all these weird things, and if you mess up this part, you can kind of mess up your whole run, so I'd recommend being careful here. For the third phase, Bowser comes out to play, and you gotta trick him into jumping on all the floor tiles so that they break. You don't have to get him to jump on all of them, just the same one twice. So it's not too bad, but you do have to take your time with this one. For the final phase, you fall through to the second floor, and Bowser will drink this liquid that makes him grow really big, but then he crashes through the floor, so he can't really attack you all that well, at least. He'll throw these stone things at you that only activate when he breathes fire on them, so you gotta wait for that to happen, and then you throw them at him and it does damage. It's kind of hard to get used to that part because it's not entirely clear what you're supposed to do, but once you get that part down, it's not that bad. But it makes for an incredible finale and is by far the best boss fight in Mario Party history. And that's all the Mario Party boss fights ranked. I really hope you enjoyed this video. It is worth mentioning that I didn't count the Bowser minigames because those are more like minigames and don't really play like boss fights, so I decided not to count them on the list. All of these boss fights, really, for the most part, don't really have anything wrong with them and are all a lot of fun. The Mario Party franchise has some really underrated boss fights, and I think they're all incredible. So with that said, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all next time, but until then, keep being awesome Nintendo fans. Peace out.